Welcome back, everyone. Now, if you're the kind of person who loves a deep, structured dive into meticulously recorded data, well, you are in for an absolute treat today. In this explainer, we're unpacking a really fascinating source. It's a completely handwritten 22-page journal that methodically reviews 11 unique fountain pens. And the author here didn't just jot down a few random thoughts, right? They created this highly detailed, crafted catalog. It focuses heavily on the tactile nuances of handmade Indian craftsmanship. So we've actually gone through all 22 pages, sorted and associated the related pictures with their specific journal entries, and distilled all this incredible tactile info. That way, we can review these 11 pens separately for you. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at our roadmap. First up, we'll look at the pen journaling project itself. Second, the PLP Ebonite collection. Third, metal and retroplastic. Fourth, advanced ebonite piston pens. Fifth, Woodex and Conrite Desire. And finally, we'll wrap up with our final thoughts on craftsmanship.
Section 1, the Pen Journaling Project, establishing the rubric.
So, to digest 11 different pens rapidly without getting totally overwhelmed, we're strictly applying the author's standardized 4-step rubric to every single item. For each pen, we're going to look at the body and material, specifically focusing on that tactile nature of ebonite versus metal or plastic. We'll check the nib specs, noting exactly who made it and what size it is. Then we'll examine the feed system, which, is absolutely crucial for ink flow. And finally, we'll analyze the handwritten writing sample provided right there in the journal to see how it actually performs on the page.
Section 2, the PLP Ebonite Collection, Core Handmade Models.
First up on our list is the PLP Torpedo. This one features a really beautiful matte blue-black ebonite body. Under the cap, it's housing a chrome-colored steel Jowo No. 6 fine nib, and that's fed by a Schmidt converter. The journal notes that using Pelikan dark green ink, the flow is incredibly smooth with just a slight, very enjoyable feedback. And what's super fascinating here is that the author notes this fine nib actually writes more like a Japanese medium. The writing sample totally proves it too. Continuous lines, absolutely zero skipping, and honestly, no hard pressure needed whatsoever.
Next is the PLP Jumbo. This one steps up the visual flair with a classic green, glossy ebonite finish and an ambitious 40mm dual-tone medium nib. Now, what's really interesting about this specific journal entry is the completely honest struggle recorded by the author. I mean, it's a gorgeous pen, but it had serious initial friction issues. The writer literally had to use pliers to unscrew the body to use it as an eyedropper filler. They eventually had to apply silicone grease to the threads just to smooth it out. Once inked, it suffered from some delayed capillary action and initial skipping, but, and here's the payoff, after that breaking in period, it settled right into a smooth flow with a very distinct pencil-like feedback.
Now contrast that with the PLP Mini in black and red ebonite. This one uses a Conrite No. 5.5 fine/medium nib. The handwritten review is actually quite critical here. It explicitly mentions a very stiff feeling. The capillary action stubbornly took time to start, the ink flow got interrupted multiple times, and skipping was just a frustrating recurring issue. This possibly points to a lack of flow through the feeder, or maybe it just needs a nib tune. The author does note, however, that posting the cap makes it feel a bit better in the hand, even if it doesn't quite fit the grip perfectly out of the gate.
Rounding out the core PLP models is the Vellon, showcasing the striking black and chocolate swirl. This eyedropper-only pen uses an ambitious No. 5 fine steel nib. Now, the author actually tested this with diamine maroon ink over a 2-month period. While it did take a second for the capillary action to kickstart initially, the long-term review is completely glowing. It provided a highly satisfactory, continuous flow with no skipping, delivering a crispness that strongly reminds the writer of that signature pencil-like feedback they clearly just love.
And this brilliantly illustrates a key takeaway when it comes to handmade fountain pens. You can literally have 2 ebonite pens from the exact same maker, yet they yield vastly different capillary flow experiences right out of the box. The Mini was stiff and uncooperative, definitely requiring some patience or tuning, whereas the Vellon, after a super brief startup, delivered a perfectly crisp, continuous flow for months. It really just highlights the inherent variations you get in handcrafted tools.
Moving on to Section 3, Metal and Retroplastic, the Commercial Outliers.
Here we have the Divine Ganapati. This is a Conrite-made pen that stands out immediately with its heavy, etched metal body. It features a medium steel nib with a black PVD coating, paired nicely with an ebonite feed. Using Waterman Audacious Red ink, the journal records an absolutely excellent flow. It writes very smoothly with zero skipping. And despite that heavy metal construction, the author specifically points out that it has wonderful balance and just feels really nice while writing.
On the completely opposite end of the spectrum is the Camlin Elegante. We're talking about a lightweight, maroon, plastic pen with a classic retro shape and a snap-on cap. It features a gold-plated fine steel nib and a pretty unique plunger push-pull converter for drawing ink. Now, at a cost of just 225 rupees, you might expect subpar performance, right? But the journal tells a remarkably different story. Filled with Diamine Maroon, there is absolutely no delay in capillary action. It writes smoothly and effortlessly, giving you slight feedback when writing fast and virtually none when writing slowly. A true budget outlier for sure.
Section 4. Advanced Ebonite Piston Pens, moving beyond eyedroppers.
Let's look at the PLP Dronacharya. This one is visually stunning with its green and yellow ebonite swirls. It utilizes an ambitious 40mm medium nib with Diamine Royal Blue ink. But what really stands out in the journal entry for this pen isn't just the smooth, non-gushing ink flow, it's the physical sensation. The writer emphasizes that the larger body feels perfectly balanced in the palm. They even describe the experience quite romantically as, quote, like writing on a scroll. Even at a really fast pace, it remains completely comfortable.
Now let's check out the PLP piston model and see how it builds on that ebonite foundation. This pen successfully marries traditional Indian ebonite with modern mechanics. It features a flat top and bottom with this really cool see-through acrylic ink window separating the body from the black ebonite grip section. Utilizing a Conwrite 35mm fine nib and Pelikan 4001 dark green ink, the journal notes an incredibly smooth, continuous flow with almost no feedback. The author calls it an understated gem and actually counts it among their absolute favorites.
Section 5. Woodex and Conwrite Desire, Contrasting Capillary Action.
Take a look at the Woodex number 62. It has a sleek, glossy black ebonite body with this nice hourglass grip pattern housing an ambitious 40mm dual-tone medium nib. The critical data point here is definitely the feed. It uses a plastic feed, and the journal notes that with Ellington dark Descent ink, the capillary action is almost instantaneous. Because it's lightweight but maybe not perfectly suited for rapid, messy notes, the author describes it as providing a fantastic experience for slow, deliberate writing.
I actually want to pause on this exact quote directly from the journal. The pen writes smoothly like butter. The feed is a plastic feed, but the capillary action is almost instantaneously. You can really feel the writer's authentic enthusiasm here. This specific combination of the glossy ebonite, the ambitious nib, and that highly responsive plastic feed basically created an absolutely ideal, deliberate writing session for them. Now let's compare that instantaneous plastic feed to the Woodex number 39. This pen has a really tactile, brushed matte finish with polished grip and end sections. It features a fine point steel nib, but crucially, it uses a traditional ebonite feed. The journal explicitly states that it took a few minutes for the capillary action to even start. Once it finally did, the flow of Waterman Serenity Blue ink was continuous and smooth, but it did require the writer to maintain a certain level of deliberate pressure to keep that ink flowing steadily. A vastly different mechanical experience, right? Wrapping up our individual reviews, we have the Conwrite Desire Amber Demonstrator. This transparent pen lets you see all the inner workings. It's fitted with a medium nib and tested using a blue ink cartridge. The journal entry for this one highlights a bit of a struggle right out of the gate, to be honest. It notes a scratchy start, delayed capillary action for the ink to kick in, and a pretty stiff feeling initially. However, it also documents that over the course of the writing sample, the flow did become continuous and the nib actually smoothed out.
Section 6. Final thoughts on craftsmanship, synthesizing the data.
So the crucial point is, when we map out all this data visually, a very clear pattern emerges regarding the author's preferences. Out of 11 pens, 8 are crafted from handmade ebonite. They heavily leaned into ambitious and Conwrite nibs, consistently chasing a very specific writing feel. The journal beautifully captures the tension between different feed types too, the immediate gratification of the plastic feeds found in the Camlin and Woodex 62 versus the sometimes stubborn but ultimately rewarding ebonite feeds that required real patience to initiate that capillary action.
To summarize the core lessons we've extracted today from this explainer, first, handmade ebonite pens are instruments with distinct personalities. They sometimes require patience, a bit of physical tweaking. Remember greasing the jumbo's threads with pliers or breaking in. Commercial plastics and metals often work immediately, but they kind of lack that unique character. Second, out-of-the-box perfection isn't guaranteed. Occasional nib tuning is just part of the hobby. And finally, the ultimate goal for this writer wasn't glass-smooth perfection at all. It was actually that recurring, highly desired pencil-like tactile feedback that makes writing a truly physical experience.
Which brings us to our final thought for you today. Looking at this incredible 22-page journal, we really have to ask ourselves, does the perfect writing experience come seamlessly from a factory press, or is it something earned? Is it something you discover through the tactile quirks, the slight feedbacks, and the necessary adjustments of a handmade instrument? Think deeply about the soul of the tools you use every day. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the craft, and keep exploring.